It was supposed to be an ordinary Tuesday evening. I had just parked my truck after another long day at work when I noticed something strange near the side of my house. A utility truck sat in my driveway, and two workers were standing beside my electric meter. One worker looked uncomfortable as he held paperwork in his hands. The other reached toward my electric meter as if he was about to disconnect the power. My stomach immediately dropped. I calmly asked what they were doing. One of the workers apologized before explaining they had received an emergency disconnect order requested by the Homeowners Association. According to the paperwork, my house had committed a serious safety violation. That made absolutely no sense. My house had passed every county inspection just months earlier. I immediately asked to see the paperwork for myself. The paperwork listed a dangerous electrical modification that supposedly violated county code. But I had never made any changes to the electrical system. Someone had clearly filed false information. Then I noticed something shocking at the bottom of the document. The request wasn't signed by the utility company. It had been submitted directly by HOA President Linda Carter. As I looked across the street, there she was. Linda stood with several HOA board members watching my house with satisfied smiles. A few neighbors had already started recording everything with their phones. Linda loudly announced that rules applied to everyone. She claimed my home was dangerous and that the neighborhood deserved better. Several neighbors looked confused rather than supportive. Instead of arguing, I smiled. I walked inside my house and returned with a thick folder containing every inspection report, permit, and maintenance record from the last 5 years. The smiles on the HOA board slowly disappeared. I handed the documents directly to the lead utility supervisor. Within seconds, he realized something didn't match the county records, and everything suddenly became very quiet. The utility supervisor quietly stepped away and called his dispatch office. He wanted to verify the emergency disconnect request before touching my electrical meter. Linda crossed her arms confidently, convinced everything was still going according to her plan. Only a minute later, the supervisor's expression completely changed. Dispatch confirmed there was no official county order authorizing a power disconnection. Every eye immediately turned toward Linda. The supervisor politely informed Linda that the utility company could not disconnect service without a valid government authorization. Her confident smile disappeared almost instantly. Linda insisted that the HOA had authority to protect the neighborhood. She raised her voice, hoping confidence alone would make everyone believe her claim. Instead, several neighbors began whispering among themselves. One elderly neighbor stepped forward. He calmly told everyone that Marcus had always maintained one of the nicest homes in the entire neighborhood. More residents nodded in agreement. I opened another section of my folder and handed over copies of every electrical inspection certificate. Each one carried the county seal and showed that my property had passed without a single violation. The supervisor carefully compared my paperwork with the document Linda had submitted. The addresses looked similar, but one important number had been altered. Someone had changed the property information. A neighbor holding a phone quietly announced that the entire confrontation had been live-streamed from the beginning. Suddenly, Linda realized dozens of people had already witnessed everything. The HOA board members slowly stepped away from Linda. None of them wanted responsibility for paperwork that appeared to contain false information. Their confidence quickly turned into silence. The utility supervisor officially canceled the disconnect request and restored my account to normal status. Before leaving, he quietly suggested that I report the incident to county officials because someone had clearly abused the process. The next morning, I drove straight to the county administration building with every document neatly organized in a binder. I wasn't looking for revenge. I simply wanted the truth documented. If someone had abused official procedures, they needed to answer for it. A county compliance officer patiently listened as I explained everything that had happened. She carefully reviewed my paperwork and immediately noticed several inconsistencies in the HOA's request. She explained that homeowners associations could report concerns, but they had absolutely no authority to order utility disconnections on their own. That decision belonged only to the utility company and the proper government agencies. After scanning the paperwork into the county system, the officer paused. She noticed that the electronic submission had been made using an HOA account already linked to previous complaints. The officer thanked me for bringing everything in so quickly. She explained that an official investigation would begin immediately, and every document connected to the request would be preserved for review. Meanwhile, News about the confrontation spread throughout the neighborhood. Several residents who had remained silent for years suddenly began sharing their own experiences with the HOA board. One family revealed they had received repeated warning letters over issues that never actually existed. Another homeowner admitted they had paid unnecessary fines simply to avoid conflict. Within days, the county investigator requested copies of the HOA board meeting minutes. They wanted to determine who approved the false complaint before it reached the utility company. Linda tried convincing the board that everything had been a misunderstanding. But several board members quietly admitted they had never voted to authorize any utility disconnect request. For the first time since this entire situation began, Linda looked genuinely worried. She realized the investigation was no longer about me. It was now focused on the decision she had made.